Tonight, we investigate the government failures that fueled Trump's win and why his call for law and order took off in the Rust Belt.
I didn't have to be cut. The girl, the mentally impaired girl, didn't need to be raped.
Plus, see why some of the top spenders in Florida politics lost on election night and what that means. Plus, predictions for Trump's cabinet from Washington to Tampa Bay. This is Money, Power, and Politics.
Yeah, Marissa, Democrats are still wondering how in the world did they lose a state like Michigan?
But remember, that's where Detroit went bankrupt and government poisoned its own citizens. In Flint, politicians let them down and voters rebelled.
And along comes Donald Trump. That's how it starts. He said he would scrap the trade deals that drove jobs to Mexico and stop violent crime from spreading unchecked. And his call for law and order touched a nerve, especially in places like Michigan. So we'll start tonight by showing you why and what some voters who typically vote Democrat may have been thinking on election night.
Just before the election, a killer and serial rapist made headlines across Michigan because he roamed free for years while DNA collected dust.
Yeah, and what we're about to show you will make you very angry and make you sad. And it's a striking example of the kinds of repeated failures that may have cost lives and drove a political revolution. Here's Charlie LaDuff.
I was just blessed that I got away, because mostly of them is not getting away from him, because he's not only raping them, he's killing them.
We'll call her Victoria. She was among an untold number of Detroit teenage girls who were raped by this monster, Michael Montgomery. The authorities had ample chance to lock him away over the course of a decade, but whether it was laziness, sloth, or an overwhelmed criminal justice system, they never did, until now.
He built something from under the stairs, and then you can close it and lock it. He put me in there for like a day or something. I heard him and his brother up there talking. They finally let me out, and that's when they started to, rape me in this other room.
I want to make sure you understand the charges.
Montgomery, a part-time security guard, has pled to multiple counts of rape, murder of a teenage girl, and the attempted murder of 2 EMTs. He will serve 40 to 80 years in prison. But his case raises serious questions. Have we fixed things? How many other predators are out there that are known to the authorities? Do the young lives of the city's most vulnerable truly matter? Let's go back 11 years ago to December 2005 to the first victim we know of. A young woman abducted by gun and knife, raped in a West Side alley near the public library.
No one was told.
And if you had been told, what would you have told your granddaughter?
I just would have told her, don't be going out there, don't go by there. Because this is a bad person going on raping other girls.
She never had the chance.
Never had the chance to tell her.
A week later, just 2 days before New Year's Eve, he strikes again. 16-year-old Dantoya White.
The 10th grader at Cody High School was last seen walking home from this public library on Joy Road, December 29th.
Oh, Lord. He raped her. He stabbed about, 40 times or 48 times? Something like that.
3 months later, in April of 2006, DNA recovered from both Dantoya's body and the first victim come up as a match. There is a serial rapist and killer on the loose. Still, the library is never told, nor the family, nor the people of Detroit. The very next month, just 5 miles away, a 15-year-old is abducted and raped in an alley. Her rape kit was not tested for 7 years, and the case went cold. But Montgomery reemerges in 2010.
I went straight to the house. My mom was there. The police was already there. My mom got to asking me questions, and I told her I was raped. No, you wasn't. You lying piece of shit. I'm like, yes, I was. Police asked me questions. They did not believe me either. So they left it alone. They left. That was it.
Yes, ma'am. Call my attorney now, please.
Victoria knew Montgomery and gave the police his name. The police typed a report, but never followed up. And Victoria walked herself to the hospital. Her rape kit, too, moldered for 5 years. And Montgomery was still on the loose. Eventually, 10,000 rape kits were discovered in the old Detroit Police Crime Lab, to great national shame. Eventually, Victoria and the 15-year-old's kits were tested, and the DNA matched Dantoya's murder case. And cold case detectives circled back to Victoria last year. So what made you want to help the police 5 years later?
Because I know they're still out there doing it, and they're doing it to girls that don't deserve it at all. No woman deserves to be raped at all.
Unbelievably, authorities already had Montgomery's name and DNA sample from yet another abduction case in 2015. Inexplicably, that DNA sample sat around in the Michigan State Police Crime Lab untested for 250 days. The DNA backlog there stands at about 4,000 cases. Detectives and prosecutors in Detroit asked the lab to put a rush on that sample, and it all came back to Montgomery. But before authorities could apprehend him, Montgomery struck once more in October of last year, nearly killing an EMT.
But the reality is it didn't have to happen. I didn't have to be cut. The girl, the mentally impaired girl, didn't need to be raped. This is 10 years. 10 years this man has walked the city of Detroit doing what he does, and nobody has stopped him.
Invest the money where we need it. A new arena. We don't need a new arena. A new jail? Yes. A new prison system? Yes. But a new arena, new restaurants, we don't need that. The city need to feel safe. Without the city, without the crime labs be able to process evidence, we're not gonna make it.
Our Father, say it, Mama, who art in heaven.
Montgomery will be eligible for parole in 2056, and Dantoya White lies in an unmarked grave.
This was a little girl studying at the library. Who knows what she would have been when she grew up, how she could have been the next president. But she's in a ground with a marker. Nothing that states who she is, what she is, or who she was.
Coming up, we'll show you where we go from here with a closer look at Trump's call for law and order. Marissa.
And we have some inside scoop on Trump's transition and some well-known Florida Republicans who could be going to Washington after the break.
Well, here we go. Charlie Crist is on Capitol Hill today, and behind my right shoulder here, how about that? He and other newly elected congressional members lined up for their freshman photo. Marissa.
The yearbook pick. Well, Chris beat David Jolly for that Pinellas County seat last week. He'll get to work on January 3rd. But Craig, there's another local politician that could be making her way to Washington too, right?
Well, it's possible. We'll start with Governor Rick Scott, because he said he will not serve in Trump's cabinet, doesn't want that. But Attorney General Pam Bondi did not rule that out.
Bondi was an early loyal supporter of Donald Trump. She is already a member of his transition team, and she could be up for something much bigger in Trump's administration. If only we could book somebody on our show who has some inside scoop on Bondi and might want to share it with us on our show.
Well, look who just dropped in. I think that's Adam Goodman, who may be Pam Bondi's confidant and media guy for all these years, advisor. So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being pretty darn good, how well do you know Ms. Bondi?
11.
So give us a prediction. If you had to predict, if we shackled your feet here to the set, wouldn't let you go until you gave us a prediction. What will she be in the Trump administration?
Well, the good thing is she's serving at a high level in the transition committee, and that's so she's going to be right there at the table for a lot of the decisions. I think you might say, I mean, it's Katie bar the door in terms of what she could do. Some of the things that would make the most sense, clearly. I mean, she has been a very successful attorney general. The attorney general of the United States should not be beyond the realm of possibility. I think drug czar would be a very interesting position for her, given all the things she's done to fight illegal drugs, synthetic drugs. Even there's been some talk about becoming the next chairman of the Republican National Committee, and maybe leading the way to the party, hopefully, developing from this election a new personality, which I think is to go back to the party of Lincoln.
Let's read something from June 26, 2016. You said, if Trump is within a few points of Clinton in the polls going into Election Day, he will become president of the United States.
Wow.
What did you know that everybody else was just missing out on?
Two things. I got lucky. No. Two things. One is I'd actually seen this in my career once before. I mean, personally, and it's at the very beginning. When the former mayor of Philadelphia, Frank Rizzo, was running for re-election, and he was down like 30 points or something ridiculous in the early going. And I said, oh my gosh, this thing is over. And I was told by the team, no, it isn't. It's the Rizzo factor. I said, what is that? They said, it's the hidden vote. It's the people that find it socially unacceptable to say openly they're for Frank Rizzo, but they're always there at the end of the day because they think he's a remedy for what they're looking for. Mm-hmm. The same thing I think I saw from the beginning with Donald Trump. He was the you might say the remedy to take on a system that most people feel has let them down. Working class Americans feel it's just simply no longer working for them. So I said, I've seen this before. I see the same things in play. And I understand polling enough to know that if you're within margin of error, which is the statistical variance excuse for pollsters to say, we think we have it right, but we're not quite sure. And out of fairness, things happen even at the last second. I thought in the cool of night, on Election Day, the best day of the campaign for Donald Trump was going to be that day, that people were going to vote and vote big at that moment for change. And I think, in fact, that's what happened.
You look into state politics in Florida. In the state Senate races, 3 of the top 5 spenders lost. You have Schlossberg, Miguel Diaz-de la Portilla, Mike Steiniger. They all lost. What does that tell you about the influence of money in politics in 2016?
Overrated. And certainly in terms of the presidential campaign, the huge amount of money that was spent on the outside to affect the presidential, I think had minimal impact.
And if I heard right, you predicted that Pam Bondi would be the next U.S. Attorney General, right?
She is deserving of something wonderful. She is incredibly skilled, and it's been my honor, of course, to be with her all these years.
Adam, thank you for your time.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, there is one person we know won't be Trump's attorney general, and that's because he said so himself. Rudy Giuliani flat out said, quote, I won't be attorney general. So there's that, Craig.
Yeah, there's that, but he wants to be Secretary of State. We know that because he's talking himself up. He's also mentioning John Bolton's name. Look, here's the two of them. Take a look.
John would be a very good choice.
Is there anybody better?
Maybe me, I don't know.
I'm kind of old school on this business. It's been an honor to serve the country, but ultimately this is the president-elect's decision.
All right, and on top of that, Ben Carson says thanks, but no thanks. He doesn't want a cabinet position. You have Mike Rogers out of the transition. There's a little bit of turmoil, not to be unexpected when you have an outsider taking over here. Question is, who's going to be the press secretary in all this?
Well, Fox News contributor Laura Ingraham has been mentioned for the job. She was an advisor for Trump before the debates and said she would be honored should she be asked to join Trump's team.
I'm sure there's an adjustment period. You know, I have my company Life's That, you know, radio, Fox, you know, I write a bunch of books. So it's a, you know, it's a big decision, but I'm at the point where if my country needs me, and if I could do something to actually, advance the Trump agenda, which is stuff I've written about now for 15 years with trade and immigration and just renewing America, then I obviously have to seriously consider that.
All right, there you go. Coming up, well, they had a rocky relationship at first, but it appears as if Paul Ryan and Donald Trump are getting along much better these days.
Plus, we just got Mr. Goodman's take on how Trump was able to win the election. Now, President Obama chimes in on what worked so well for the president-elect. Well, they butted heads all throughout the campaign, but now it appears the relationship has taken a turn for the better.
Yeah, of course, you're talking about, what, Donald Trump and Barack Obama?
Yeah,
no. Talking about Priebus and Bannon?
No.
Bill and Hillary Clinton?
No.
Okay, I know you're talking about Donald Trump and the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. Instead of trying to butt heads all through the campaign, now they want to work together. And look, when you have Reince Priebus in the White House running the show of Chief of Staff, you have Paul Ryan already getting selected. He decides to get the votes in January. It looks as if he will have an easy ride once again to holding onto the Speaker's gavel, and with that, he will have an awful lot of clout. Look for the Ryan agenda moving through Congress in January of next year.
We're on the same page with our president-elect. I talk with Donald Trump virtually every single day. I spoke with Mike Pence this morning. We are on the same page. We're working hand in glove, and we're going to make sure that this is a very successful administration. But more importantly, we're going to make sure that the voices we heard from this election for the American people are acted upon, that we actually fix these country's problems. Donald Trump wants jobs. I've talked to Donald so many times just this week, which is let's make sure we get people back to work. Let's make sure we get this economy growing. Let's take all this uncertainty out of the economy that's plaguing it and get people back to work.
That's going to work well for Donald Trump, as is his chief ambassador, President Obama, who's become his de facto ambassador. Remember, this is what President Obama said about President-elect Trump that can do the new president a great deal of good.
You've seen some of the rhetoric among Republican elected officials and activists and media. Some of it pretty troubling and not necessarily connected to facts, but being used effectively to mobilize people. President-elect Trump tapped into that particular strain within the Republican Party and then was able to broaden that enough and get enough votes to win the election.
Well, coming up, he coined the phrase, "a penny saved is a penny earned," but all those pennies are coming at a cost at the gravesite of Benjamin Franklin. We'll explain after the break.
Okay, so a bunch of tourists cracked Benjamin Franklin's headstone by throwing pennies on it. Penny saved, penny earned, he said, or some people think that was actually penny saved, penny got. But with that, there is an effort to try to restore it. That'll cost $10,000. If you count the pennies, though, the $5,000 a year, give it 2 years, and maybe those pennies will pay for it itself.
At some point, yeah.
All right, we have a new round of predictions we're going to roll out tomorrow for Trump's transition. We will join you once again tomorrow night. Take care.